Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to Water Wednesday. If this is the first time you tune in, you may wonder what is Water Wednesday. Water Wednesday is a Facebook live series provided by a group of agents with the University of Florida IFAS Extension. Every Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll Facebook live a short like about 20-minute talk about Florida's water and what we can do to protect it. So for previous Water Wednesdays, we focus on residential irrigation, like how we can save water with Florida-friendly plants, or what is Florida-friendly, or how can we build a rain barrel. And today we invited the residential horticulture agent in Lake County, Miss Jamie Dockerton, to go through when we should water or use a catch name. It's to time it right. Like, do you know when you water, it really matters. So now let's welcome our guest speaker, Miss Jamie, to give us this talk. And before Jamie shares her screen and go through some key points about irrigation, I also want to let you know we will take questions at the end of her presentation. So if you have any questions, just leave in the chat box. So I will bring those questions to Jamie at the end. And also I will also share a link. It's our survey link. We always appreciate your feedback. If you could take a few minutes, it's really simple, only 3 questions. If you can take a minute or so to complete that survey for us, tell us how we can improve our Water Wednesday series, we will really appreciate that. So now let's get a party started. The floor is yours, Jamie.
Thank you, Yiling. I didn't know we were having a party, but that's exciting. So let me just get my screen sharing working. All right, that should be working now. Just get this out of my way. All right, well, thank you all for coming. So today I'm going to be talking to you about why when we water matters. So I'm going to go over a few different things. I'm going to start with giving you a summary of the water restrictions specific to Lake County. There are similar water restrictions across several different counties in Florida, but you'd want to visit your county water restrictions website and or your water management district for your area, just to make sure there aren't slight differences that you need to know that I'm not talking specifically about today. After that, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about plant physiological properties. But don't worry, I'm not going to go too in depth, and anything that I even thought might be a complicated term, I'm explaining in depth to make sure that you can understand everything. So we're going to focus on properties of water, transpiration, and turgor pressure. So again, I'll explain all of those terms moving forward. So water restriction summary, again, for Lake County. The one that we're mostly focusing on for this talk is the fact that we need to water before 10 a.m. and after 4 p.m. Additional restrictions, and this is just a selection of them, are that irrigation is limited to 3/4 of an inch of water per zone that you're irrigating per day. And a tip for measuring that, you can put a container out in your yard that actually is measured at 3/4 of an inch, and then you just time how long it takes to actually fill that up to 3/4 of an inch, and that's how long you need to leave the water on. But you need to make sure that doesn't exceed the 1 hour maximum irrigation zone limit that you have per day. So if you're not having enough water come out of your sprinklers, you might need to get those looked at. So again, it's watering that 3/4 of an inch within an hour per zone. So it's also limited to the amount that's actually necessary for your landscape. Your landscape maybe doesn't need 3/4 of an inch. It depends on exactly what you have growing. 3/4 of an inch is a pretty standard number for most turf. But if you have a zone where your you have more landscape plants, less turf, that's going to change a little bit on how you really should be watering that area effectively. If you have reclaimed water that's available, they want you to use that rather than using private irrigation wells. And one of the reasons for that is when you pull water from wells, you're pulling water from the Floridan aquifer, which is also used for drinking. So if we can use alternate sources for watering, that's more desirable so we don't use up our drinking supply faster than necessary. There are also restrictions surrounding wells, pumps, ground services, and things like that. So you want to look for the restrictions in your area. There's also exemptions to different things, and those are also listed on the website. These specific ones for Lake County, there's a little information here, and also at the end of the presentation, I show you where the website is for actually accessing all of this information. So again, Lake County and the St. Johns River Water Management District limits our watering up here to occur before 10 a.m. and after 4 p.m. So the question here is why? So this is something you can be a little interactive right now. I don't think I'll be able to know if you're actually writing anything, but why don't you write in some of the reasons you think is the why? And then as I move forward, you'll be able to find out if you're right. So now this watering restriction is specific to when you're talking about irrigating from sprinkler systems. You can go out and water with a watering can between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., but it's not the most effective time to actually water your plants, even if they're in a pot or, in a landscaped area that you're watering with a watering can. And that's really what this whole presentation is going to be talking about. So the big reason why has a lot to do with photosynthesis and a process called transpiration. So let's just move to the next one. So photosynthesis, if you remember, is the process that you were taught about as a child where a plant takes in sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water, and then uses all of that to convert the sunlight into sugar. So photosynthetic processes happen in kind of a window of temperature, in that the higher the temperature is, the slower photosynthesis actually occurs up until about 104 degrees Fahrenheit, when photosynthesis just stops altogether until the temperature cools down. In fact, most of the plants that exist where it's regularly 104 or more have completely different photosynthetic processes than most other plants because they've adapted to having to deal with that heat. So for transpiration, that has to do with the fact that water is moving up through the tree and it's evaporating out of the leaves. And that pull through evaporation is referred to as a transpiration. Some people also call it evapotranspiration. So all that means is that the water is getting pulled up through the roots, through the plant, and then out through those leaves. And that particular process is one of the major reasons why we want to make sure we're watering when the plant is actually photosynthesizing, because it will stop if it decides it's water stressed or if it's too hot, which usually involves water stress. So just a quick reminder, you do have, again, water and minerals coming up through the roots. There's some gas exchange with the roots, so it's important to make sure you don't overwater. And then you have oxygen coming out as a product of photosynthesis, which we like because most of us have been, we're kind of fond of breathing, and that's where some of our oxygen actually comes from for breathing. All right. So the two important traits of water to talk about that are related to transpiration are called cohesion and adhesion. So cohesion is the ability of the water molecules to stick to each other so the water can actually flow. And adhesion is the ability of the water molecules to stick to other things. So it can stick to minerals and bring them into the plant, but it also allows it to stick to the sides of the plant cells that, so it's xylem tissue that really looks like big straws that help the water to actually move up through the tree. So it's these two distinct properties that actually allow for water transport within a tree. So much like, I think most people, if you don't have to put energy in something to get it done, that's preferable, right? Well, it's the same thing on a cellular level. It's better to have a process done passively than actively. So this passive, kind of lazy way to transport water is what plants use, because otherwise it would take way too much energy and the plant could never produce enough energy to pull the water up itself. So it relies on the fact that water is going to be attached to itself and the side of the cells so it can pull itself up just through natural evaporation processes, which is really cool. But the plant also has to regulate it so it just doesn't lose all of the water. So that regulation happens on the outside of the leaves, and we have what are called stomata that are surrounded by guard cells. So that's what I have circled in red. And they're able to open and close. So those guard cells do exactly what it sounds like. They're guarding that opening. So they'll open and close based on chemical signals coming from the plant. So those chemical signals could be, hey, you know what? It's really hot. We're losing a lot of water. We want to shut the doors. Okay, so then the guard cells are going to then close up that pore so that you don't have water loss. But when those pores close, carbon dioxide can't come inside, which is one of the reasons why photosynthesis slows down and eventually even stops if temperatures get too high or if water amounts get too low, depending on what's happening. So one of the things that can actually trigger opening and closing is when you start to see a loss of what's referred to as turgor pressure. And turgor pressure is what gives the ability of plants to actually hold their stems and leaves up to the light to actively photosynthesize. It's what keeps them nice and firm. Otherwise, they're going to start wilting, and that wilting is a sign of a lack of turgor pressure. It frequently does mean that the plant needs water. Not necessarily, though. There's rare occasions where it's actually a sign of too much water. So just feel the dirt first, unless you know you haven't watered in a while. Just feel it to check and see kind of what's going on. And these are actually my plants. So even horticultural agents sometimes don't have time to go water their plants. But I came home from work after 5. My poor fire bush wasn't looking so great. I put some water on it. The next morning, it was perfectly happy. So turgor pressure itself is about how much water is being held in plant cells. So turgor pressure is also one of the reasons why plant cells have cell walls, which is really cool. So the cell walls are there to help hold the cell together as it fills up with water. So there's this organelle called a central vacuole, which you can kind of think of it like a giant water balloon in the cell. That's where the water gets stored. And as long as it's full, it's nice, it's full, it fills out that cell wall, and then that cell wall holds everything together so it doesn't explode. So if an animal cell was trying to hold as much water as a plant cell can hold, our cells would explode. So that cell wall is what allows these plants to produce the pressure to hold themselves up. And as they lose that pressure, that balloon starts to shrink. And then it's no longer able to hold that cell wall out, and the cell wall starts to collapse in, which leads to the wilting. So as temperatures increase, there's a higher chance of too much water loss, which again is going to shut systems down. Not all plants are going to start wilting. Some of them are going to just, close the stomata and stop processes or significantly reduce them so that they don't get to the point of wilting. Okay. So normally you see wilting issues a bit more in your potted plants than in your plants that are in your garden in the ground, because they have more access to water. When you have plants in pots, there's that limited amount of water within the pot, but also you have a higher rate of evaporation of water from that soil, whereas when you have a larger soil area, there's less evaporation from the actual soil itself. So the plant, again, has access to more water. In any case, when it's potted, when in doubt, put your finger in the soil, and if it's wet, you don't have to water. If it's dry, you do have to water. All right, so this is a very short presentation, so I'm going to ask you here, why does it matter what time we actually water? Okay, I'm going to give you a second, and you guys can type some stuff and have a little conversation, and then I'm going to give you the answers. And we went a little bit quick. It's quite short. If you're interested in a much longer presentation about this, feel free to email me and I will make one up. But this was pretty much what the general public would need to know for exactly the science behind why we water when we water. All right, so water in the mornings gives plants access to water that they're going to need to photosynthesize as the day starts to heat up. And the benefit to watering in the morning is that the leaves are also able to dry, which significantly reduces the chance of actually having mold issues later on. After 4 p.m., temperatures generally begin to drop, which means the plants can photosynthesize. You know, as the sun's starting to go down, they can still have a little bit of active processes happening, so you can water there. But one thing to remember is after the sun's down, night has fallen, you really shouldn't water your plants. The plants aren't actively able to uptake that water. They're not using it for photosynthesis. You're better off watering in the morning or in the evening. So that's my really quick summary for Facebook Live on why watering matters. So I guess we're ready for questions.
Thank you, Jamie. I have to say that's the most scientific reason I've heard, like why watering matters. So I learned, at least I learned two big terms. One is cohesion and the other is adhesion. I really didn't realize, to be honest with you, I really didn't realize the whole science before why you do not want to water between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I learned a lot.
I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
So another helpful tip to remember what cohesion and adhesion mean is if you think about having like a cohesive group of people, it's people working together. And if you think of like a Band-Aid adhering to your skin, it's sticking to your skin. So it's two different things sticking together.
Like your analogy. Awesome. So if you have any questions, please leave your questions in the chat box, or if you are on Facebook Live, just leave your questions in the comment box, because I know there are about 10 seconds delay between Facebook and Zoom. So for the time for our Facebook Live participants, when you are typing your questions, let's look at what we have on our Zoom platform. Yeah, we got, I don't know if you can see that, Jamie. It's excellent presentation. Many thanks.
Thank you.
That's what I want to say too. That's very informative. And I also want to let you guys know I post our Water Wednesday evaluation survey on our Facebook platform. Now I'm pasting it also on our Zoom platform. We'll really appreciate if you can answer if you can take the survey and let us know how we can improve our series. And I'm looking at the Facebook. I don't see any questions here.
Well, I do have one other thing I could mention. If you're local to Lake County, I actually did write an article this week with a little bit more detail on this topic that should be coming out on Saturday in the Daily Commercial.
That's cool. Excellent. We can see the links on our screen, but I cannot paste it. Let me find the original.
Let me unshare and then I can do it. So I'm going to stop my share. Okay, I'll put the links in.
Okay, and I will copy your email address. I have that. I will put on Facebook.
All right, so that should be both links to things that'll help.
I think you covered everything. I don't see any questions here. That's excellent.
I tried. It's a complicated topic, but I think it's good for people to know that if you water at the wrong time, you're just wasting water. It's not doing anything, and it actually can do more harm than good.
I'm copying. Good. So I hope after today's let me send these two links first. Feel like I cannot multitask. I'm sorry for our viewers. I promise I will be quick. All right. I just pasted 2 links on our chat box. And also, one more thing I do want to just like scam alert. I know now scammers are getting crazy. They are copying our events and then post somewhere else. When you click the link, they ask you your personal information or your credit card information. Just want to let you know our Water Wednesday series is free. So you be careful. Do not provide any your personal information or your financial information through those links. And be careful when you click the links. I will say, please do not click any links not shared by me or by the admin. Now I forgot what I wanted to ask everyone. Oh yeah, I do. It's so I think the big take home message, if you forgot all the science behind that, I hope you can all remember. Please do not water after 10 a.m. and before 4 p.m., which means only water before 10 a.m. and after 4 p.m. Am I right?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yay, I sum it up right. So thank you so much for watching today's Facebook Wednesday, Water Wednesday, and thank you so much, Jamie, for this excellent, informative presentation. So next Wednesday, our talk is virtual water. Not sure if you have heard of this term. If you have not heard of this term, then next Wednesday, it's your perfect time to tune in and learn something about virtual water. So please like us, give us a thumb up if you like our talk, and share our information with your friends and family. And see you next Wednesday. Bye.